Dead or alive, Saddam Hussein no longer counts in President Bush's axis of evil. But among the remaining members is Iraq's next-door neighbor, Iran.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
Here is not Iraq, is not Pakistan, is not Afghanistan. The people are full of culture. They know many things. They are aware. They want a real democracy.
And what we have to hope is that we, the United States, have a good relationship with it when that day happens.
As American troops deal with the last of the Iraqi resistance, the question being asked is what's next? Beyond the massive job of reconstruction and nation building, there's the question of the country next door. Iran is a far more complicated and potentially more dangerous member of President Bush's axis of evil. Its repressive regime has been openly hostile to the United States for the last 25 years. It's a state sponsor of terrorism. And of greatest concern, it is developing the capability to build a nuclear bomb. Yet Iran is also taking its first faltering steps towards democracy. Political reformers there have won landslide elections, but their reforms are blocked by unelected, hardline clerics. Just who ultimately prevails will have an important effect on what kind of threat, if any, Iraq's neighbor may pose to the United States. What most Americans think of when they think about Iran is this: those 1979 pictures of Ayatollah Khomeini's Islamic Revolution and the seizure of 52 American hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. Even today, for Iran, America is still officially the Great Satan. And to the United States, Iran is officially in the axis of evil. Saddam developing a nuclear bomb, we respond with total war. Iran developing a nuclear weapon, how do we respond?
Carefully, very carefully.
Geoffrey Kemp is Director of Regional Strategic Programs at the Nixon Center, a foreign policy think tank in Washington, D.C.
A lot will depend upon how the Iranian regime itself evolves after this war with Iraq as to what sort of pressures we should put on them vis-a-vis the nuclear weapon.
Kemp says that Iran will feel dangerously isolated after the U.S. war with Iraq is over.
We will be not only a major presence in Iraq, we will be in Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Oman. We're all around them. We're encircling them with the most extraordinary military power the world has ever seen assembled. They are very nervous about this.
And they have been ever since President Bush's first State of the Union.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
Iran's foreign minister, Kamal Kharazi, says inclusion in the axis of evil was misguided. He admits Iran supports groups like Hezbollah, but says terrorism is in the eye of the beholder.
Even the suicide bombers.
They do not have any other choice. You should put yourself in their place. You should look the world through their eyes and understand their mindset. They are desperate people. They are hopeless people. It's not the question of support or non-support. It's the question of realities.
One reality that is seared into the Iranian psyche is the brutal 8-year war with Iraq in the 1980s. Reminders are everywhere in Tehran. In hospitals, the realities of Saddam Hussein's chemical attack. Men who returned home blinded, lungs burned, tethered for life to respirators. Victims stare out from every street corner. They are buried by the tens of thousands in cemeteries that have become places of pilgrimage in a country that vows never again to be a victim.
They're developing nuclear technology that is for peaceful purposes, but overnight could be shifted to bomb production. They were gassed for years by Saddam Hussein. We said nothing. The international community said nothing. In fact, we imposed a very stringent arms embargo on Iran at the same time that we were helping Iraq rearm, and they have not forgiven us for that.
Nevertheless, beyond the obvious state propaganda, there are no overt signs of anti-Americanism. Iran today is a patchwork of contradictions. Ultimate power lies with the so-called supreme leader and his coterie of hardline mullahs. Yet the president, Mohammad-Ali, won landslide victories in democratic elections on a platform of reforms that the mullahs oppose. A government at war with itself. The result, stagnation and a welter of social problems. Streets filled with runaway children, an epidemic of drug addiction, depression, and suicide. Prostitution is rampant, hardly the paradise that the revolution promised.
Iran is a messy, confused, semi-democratic, semi-authoritarian, Islamic country that is struggling to find its ways.
Confused, muddled, and potentially very powerful.
Inevitably powerful. Iran, if it sets its mind to it, could be a truly great power in the region. And what we have to hope is that we, the United States, have a good relationship with it when that day happens.
For that to happen, the social revolution taking place here must succeed. 60% of Iran's people are under 25, an exploding population connecting itself with the wider world. Women are beginning to defiantly let the hijab slip from their heads, and youth must be served with American-style burgers and fries. Time and again, students have taken to the streets demanding freedom of the press, academic freedom, and jobs.
The fundamental desire and demand of the reformers is to change the Constitution, which presently endows the supreme leader with supreme power because he gets his directions from God.
There are religious leaders who challenge the power of Iran's ruling mullahs. Among them, Ayatollah Hussein-Ali Montazeri, who's just emerged from 5 years under house arrest for preaching the separation of mosque and state.
Amongst the mullahs themselves, there is a very, very fierce debate. And some have suggested that when Iraq is liberated, you could have a much more pluralistic debate in Iran about the nature of the Islamic Revolution, its constitution, and the power of the supreme leader.
Fariborz Raisdana, a leading dissident, has been relentless in his demands for immediate democratic reforms.
We have 4.2 million unemployed people. Nearly 1 million of them are university educated. You can find job for them. Here, I'm sorry to tell that, but here is not Iraq, is not Pakistan, is not Afghanistan. The people are full of culture. They know many things. They are aware. They want a real democracy. They want to participate. They want to build their future.
Raisdana, once a prominent scholar, has been punished for his opinions, thrown into jail, stripped of academic credentials, and forbidden to teach. Despite that, he remains contemptuous of those who want reform to come at a measured pace.
During the last 25 years, first they told us that it is revolution, be cautious, be careful. We have problem with American, be cautious, be careful. Now we are in a war, be cautious, be careful. Now we are rebuilding the country, be cautious, be careful. Now we are in reformism, be cautious, be careful. I think we have to change our method.
President Khatami's method of caution and care has produced more frustration than reform. But his vice president, Mohammad-Ali Abtahi, says it is the only method to use in order to avoid political extremes that could lead to further chaos.
You have said that President Khatami stands between fascism and anarchy.
Yes, those have always been serious dangers, but steady reforms could keep us away from them.
Maybe we don't mean the same thing when we say democracy. Freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, protection of minorities. Those are not things that exist in Iran today.
We don't think you should compare us with Western democracies. You should compare Iran with our neighboring countries.
If Khatami had his way, would there be better relations?
if he had more power, that is to say, if he controlled the intelligence services, the judiciary, and the military forces, who are the three instruments that are responsible for most of the things we don't like, then I'm certain that Khatami and the people around him would definitely want better relations with the United States, and eventually, I think, with Israel. But they would talk to us at that point because they know what they are missing by not having a relationship with the world's #1 superpower.
Is there a genuine fear here that somehow those troops now on Iran's border will start to threaten the leadership of this country?
No, we do not have such a concern because we are a solid and popular system here. But we are concerned about reshaping the whole region. That is the matter of concern, not only for Iran, but for the whole region.
Of equal concern to the region are Iran's nuclear ambitions.
And the real danger we have is that if Iran is allowed to get a nuclear weapon, then I think there's a very high probability that Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia will think about their own bomb. And then you'll have in this cauldron Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, India, Turkey, nuclear weapon states. That's not the new world order we're looking for.
I'm Mike Wallace. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes. Here's what's coming from CBS News.
Tomorrow on the CBS Evening News, Baghdad, a city in chaos and crisis, much of it still without power, water, or security. And now resentment against the U.S. government is boiling over from Iraqis in the streets. Also, tomorrow we'll have full details on the recovery of the 7 American POWs and give you a glimpse inside one of Saddam's most notorious prisons. Stay with us for clear, concise coverage from the war zone on the CBS Evening News.
This week on The Early Show, we'll cover the latest developments in Iraq.
Also, Michael Douglas, Susan Sarandon, and the next Survivor cast-off.
So wake up to what's new on The Early Show.
For news 24 hours a day, log on to cbsnews.com.
CBS Monday. Inside this graveyard, CSI will discover a body that doesn't belong.
Something wasn't buried here very recently.
The clues to this case will lead to a final 5 minutes like you've never seen.
Everybody out. Everybody leave the building right now.